might decide to interpret their responsibilities under the law one way, and then their neighboring county might interpret it another way.
So to prevent that, she wants the state legislature to pass a law that would create uniform guidance across the state.
Bridget, has there been any additional guidance from the state legislature, even the State Board of Elections, for those local elections officials?
So no guidance from the State Board of Elections yet, but there is a bill working its way through the state legislature that could address these problems. It's sponsored by Brooklyn Assembly member Robert Carroll and State Senator Brian Kavanaugh of Manhattan. I spoke to Carroll, who said this bill would make it part of election law that people could register and vote on this Golden Day.
Under this bill, eligible individuals can appear at their polling site. The person must be offered the opportunity to complete a registration affidavit and then cast that ballot and not have to take any additional steps or appear at the Board of Elections and then go and vote.
Now, this bill passed out of the Assembly Elections Committee just yesterday, so we'll have to see what happens next week. The legislature is running, the clock is ticking on the legislature session, but the State Board also said they were working on some guidance that they might send out, but that is also still in the works.
That's WNYC's senior politics reporter, Bridget Bergen. Early voting runs from June 17th through June 25th before the June 27th primary. Bridget, thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
WNYC supporters include Park Avenue Armory's The Doctor. Robert Icke's theatrical thriller poses questions of faith, identity, race, gender, privilege, and scientific rationality through the lens of medical ethics. Previews start June 3rd. More at armoryonpark.org. Ballet Hispanico, June 1st through 3rd. Ballet Hispanico returns to the New York City Center stage for 4 performances, including 2 world premieres and the return of Club Havana. Tickets available at nycitycenter.org.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC News Hour on 93.9 FM. Let's check in with London to see what they're working on. London, good morning.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm James Menendez. Today on NewsHour, after a spluttering start, Ron DeSantis launches his campaign to be the Republican candidate in next year's presidential election. But can he out-Trump Trump? Also, how AI is helping a paraplegic man to walk again by decoding his brain signals. That's BBC NewsHour at 9 on 93.9 FM, WNYC.
Hackers have been sniffing around U.S. infrastructure.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Total Wine and More, where you can find a new favorite Chardonnay, sparkling wine, or tequila. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly. Be 21. And by UiPath, providing organizations the UiPath AI-powered business automation platform. More at uipath.com/marketplace. UiPath, the foundation of innovation.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore in for David Brancaccio. Microsoft and U.S. intelligence agencies are warning that a hacking group sponsored by the Chinese government has infiltrated critical infrastructure in the U.S. The group is thought to be developing capabilities to disrupt a U.S. response in the event of a crisis in Asia. Marketplace's Nova Safo is here with more. Good morning, Nova.
Good morning.
So what do we know so far about what these hackers are doing?
Well, according to Microsoft, which released a few more details than we've gotten from the intelligence agencies, this hacking group dubbed Vault Typhoon is targeting organizations across various sectors, which could all be described as critical infrastructure. That includes communications, utilities, government, among a host of others. Microsoft says it's directly notified targeted organizations, and it thinks the hackers are trying to develop the ability to disrupt communications between the U.S. and Asia during a crisis. The unsaid word there is Taiwan, and China's desire to unify with that island. This hacking effort could be connected, Sabri, to that longer-term effort.
These hackers have apparently been at this for a couple of years. How did they evade detection until now?
Well, they've apparently done a very good job of covering their tracks. For the most part, not relying on malware. They're getting into networks digitally disguised as legitimate users. Microsoft and intelligence agencies say that kind of attack is hard to detect, but they're providing organizations with a blueprint on what to look for to try to root out the hackers and their activities.
All right, Marketplace's Nova Safo, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It appears that Europe's largest economy has entered a recession. Germany's economy contracted for the second quarter in a row. Its gross domestic product shrank by 0.3% in the first 3 months of this year. Household spending went down. Government spending went down. It is the consequence of inflation and Russia's war on Ukraine. Klaus Vistesen is chief Eurozone economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics.
I think it's significant. I mean, it shows that Germany, as the European economy that was probably most exposed to the energy shock from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, has now suffered a recession. I think it's probably a relatively mild one compared to expectations early on, especially last year when prices of gas were very high and people were worried a lot about a very, very severe recession. But it's a recession all the same, and we are starting to see it affect the labor market a little bit as well. So I do think it's significant. I mean, it does show that the European economy has taken a significant knock from the energy price shock.
That's Klaus Vistesen speaking with our editorial partners at the BBC. All right, let's do the numbers. S&P futures are up 0.6%. NASDAQ futures are up more than 2%. Dow futures, though, are down 0.3%, 95 points. This is normally the point at which we would mention the yield on the 10-year Treasury. It's 3.782%. But also worth pointing out is the yield on Treasury bills that mature in early June. That is when the U.S. would no longer be able to pay its bills if the debt ceiling isn't raised. The yield for those bills is over 7%, meaning investors see them as more risky.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Grammarly. Grammarly Business empowers companies to drive faster results with secure enterprise-grade generative artificial intelligence that works where teams do. It helps businesses break down information silos, collaborate efficiently, and quickly adapt to stay competitive. Grammarly.com/business. And by Forever Ago. It's a history show for the whole family. The podcast makes learning about the past fun while teaching listeners to think critically about history.
Voters in Turkey will head to the polls again on Sunday to vote in that country's runoff presidential election. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has had a small lead in the first round of voting and may well maintain his nearly 20-year run as the leader of Turkey. But he does not have a plan to fix the country's red-hot inflation, and that is a concern for some of Turkey's older voters who are thinking about their retirement savings. In Ankara, Turkey, Victoria Craig explains.
There are some apple slices here.
Gonal Ergin sets up a picnic in the courtyard of her apartment building.
I brought some water.
She's a 72-year-old former English teacher who says retirement with her husband right now is comfortable.
We don't have many difficulties in our daily life.
But inflation here is at 44%. That's down from the official high of 85.5% last fall. Ergin worries about their retirement savings long term.
We are afraid of our future. So we try to save money. My children's family and we may live together.
1 out of 10 Turks is over 65, but their golden years are increasingly worrisome.
They tend to focus on their daily purchases and emergency savings, but not on their long-term savings.
That's Seda Peksevim, founder of Pension Research and Consulting based in Istanbul.
People sometimes consider taking a second job.
She means ad hoc work, like driving a taxi or other odd jobs.
Also, some people tend to focus on informal employment. They only want to survive in a daily form.
In 2021, the Istanbul Political Research Institute found that 12% of Turks over 65 were still working, in part because pensions are not adequate. Still, President Erdogan changed retirement requirements that then allowed 2 million Turks to retire early. It was one of his moves to gain support ahead of the election. Now, people as young as 45 can retire, like Selami Çalışkan.
Valla fiyatlar şu an için biraz pahalı.
He says things are a little bit expensive, but believes President Erdogan will do better.
Demir döküm sektöründe çalışıyordum.
He was a metal worker before, and he may need to get another job eventually, but he says he's still optimistic about the Turkish economy. Retired school teacher Gonal Ergin is less hopeful.
We have been living with this for 22 years. We can't hope that in the future we will be much better than this.
If President Erdogan wins, he says he will continue to cut interest rates. That unorthodox policy has stoked inflation and eroded many Turks' long-term savings. In Ankara, Turkey, I'm Victoria Craig for Marketplace.
And in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.